Good morning. A warm welcome to everyone here. We'll be using the hashtag Digital Single Market for this morning's event, so please feel free to start tweeting. I'll repeat that. The hashtag is Digital Single Market. Took us a long time to come up with that. Well, we have Brookings in Doha, Brookings in China, and Brookings in India. And now we're pleased to have Brookings at SAIS, at least for this morning. Thank you to the team at SAIS for their generous hospitality. We are so honored to have His Excellency Andrus Ansip, the Vice President of the Commission for the Digital Single Market and the former Prime Minister of Estonia, with us today. I first met him when he was in the Parliament, and I was visiting Brussels as Deputy U.S. Trade Representative, and also Strasbourg. So it's wonderful, Your Excellency, to see you again. I also have a soft spot for Estonia. When I was a young lawyer at the State Department years ago, one of my responsibilities was to ensure that every official reference to the Soviet Union had a footnote that said, "The government of the United States of America does not recognize the forcible incorporation of the Baltic republics." I can't think of a more opportune time to host the Vice President than now, as both the US and the EU continue to grapple with the challenges of boosting growth, creating jobs, promoting investment and innovation, and maintaining their competitiveness. Earlier this month, on May 6th, the European Commission presented its proposals for a digital single market, a new initiative to create a common market for digital goods, services, and capital, whose impact could be as fundamental as the original single market. The strategy is composed of several pillars, including breaking down barriers to cross-border online activity, creating a level playing field for companies and services, we hope not just in Europe, investing in faster broadband services for faster internet use, in cybersecurity, and in the idea of a European cloud, sharpening Europe's competitive edge by supporting innovation, and enhancing digital literacy and small business confidence. This bold strategy raises a number of questions and challenges that we are delighted to have the Vice President with us today to consider. In the quest to improve access to digital products and services across Europe, will the EU succeed in lowering the 28 regulatory fences that surround member states' online activities without erecting a taller fence around all of the EU and creating a fortress Europe? Will the strategy of reducing discrimination in online content and services among EU member states lead inadvertently or intentionally to new forms of discrimination against non-European online platforms and other services, whether they be headquartered in the United States or other countries? What will be the impact of the new strategy on TTIP, especially on the digital data flows that form the lifeblood of both economies? Negotiations on a new transatlantic trade and investment partnership were launched nearly 2 years ago to lower barriers and to improve cooperation in a combined marketplace of 800 million consumers. Many of us had hoped to see the talks further along by now. Chancellor Merkel has called for them to be substantially completed by the end of this year. Each side blames the other for moving too slowly. But with Congress close to granting President Obama trade promotion authority and the new EU Commission now firmly ensconced, both sides will soon face a day of reckoning. Do they want TTIP to succeed or not? The absence of TPA will no longer provide an excuse to wait. And for TTIP to succeed, it will be important to include a number of areas also in the new DSM strategy, such as liberalizing trade and digital services, preserving the free flow of information that both economies are so dependent upon, fighting localization and local content requirements, opening up the standards development process, enhancing interoperability, and improving regulatory cooperation across the board. A moment ago, I mentioned an important footnote. Well, there are also footnotes in the new DSM strategy. One says that the EU will present a new trade and investment strategy in the fall. So there is a risk, it seems, that the DSM strategy, particularly in all the areas where much more work is needed, could slow TTIP down further. In addition, given the explosive growth of the internet, what opportunities will there be for transatlantic companies to help improve internet access to most of the world's 7.2 billion people who do not yet have it? Rising incomes in the developing world and cheaper wireless devices and services are making it possible to envision much broader access with the many benefits that can bring, but only if governments in Europe and elsewhere continue to tear down regulatory silos and the other barriers that still exist. There are clearly terrific opportunities ahead, but also tremendous challenges. And in just a few short weeks since the Commission introduced its proposals, we've seen developments on both sides of the Atlantic that can affect aspects of the new strategy. In the US, potential modifications to the Patriot Act may help reestablish the proper balance between security and privacy concerns. We should know more on Sunday. And in Europe, there is increasing worry about an EU that one day soon may not include the United Kingdom or Greece. Now, just for a nanosecond, one might think that would make the DSM process a little easier to negotiate, 26 member states, not 28, but the repercussions of either exit would be severe. So we are looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Your Excellency, on what the evolution and the implementation of the DSM strategy means for the US-EU relationship over the coming months. After your remarks, my distinguished colleague, Cam Carey, will lead off a question and answer session. I had the privilege of working closely with Cam when we both served in the Obama administration, including when he was acting Secretary of Commerce and I was acting US Trade Representative, and I know it will be an interesting discussion. As I think about the challenges ahead, I'm reminded of what Winston Churchill once said: "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." Your Excellency, we look forward to learning more about the opportunities, not just for Europe, but also for the broader internet community. Let me invite you to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very warm introductory words. It's always a great pleasure to be here in Washington. It's because of the fact that in the European Union and here in the United States of America, we share the same values. But it's also because of our relatives living in California. I can say that I got my first lessons about free market economy from my relatives living in Palo Alto. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be with you today at this most prestigious of institutions. Thank you for inviting me. Europe and the United States enjoy a long history of strong economic and political ties. That much we all know. In terms of trade and investment, the Transatlantic Partnership is the world's most significant. Put together, our economies account for about half of global GDP and nearly a third of trade flows. Fewer people may know that a tremendous amount of this trade is underpinned by digital goods and digital flows. According to a Brookings report, data flows between the United States and Europe are the highest in the world, 50% more than those between the United States and Asia. Almost double the flows between the US and Latin America. Digital flows have become part of today's global trade reality. Along with the growth in internet access, they are driving increasing amount of transatlantic trade investment. Europe may not be home to the world's most famous internet companies, but Europe is a leader in ICT sectors like robotics and embedded systems, where it has 31% of world market share. We are also a major global exporter of digital services. European companies are major digital traders in many different sectors: banks, car manufacturers, logistic companies, to name a few. That said, it is clear that Europe can do better. In the physical sense, we have a solid internal market that integrates more than 500 million Europeans across 28 countries. But speaking digitally, there is still a long way to go before all Europeans can enjoy the same freedoms online as they already do offline. Breaking through these barriers to build digital single markets is a top priority for the European Commission. To unlock the potential of the digital economy for Europe, to tear down a series of regulatory walls to move from 28 splintered national markets to a single one. That does not mean replacing them with regional markets. It means building a unified space where Europe's single market in the physical world is extended into the world of bits and bytes. Our focus is firmly on creating economic growth, employment, and making the most of the digital age. It is also about promoting and stimulating innovation. Neither the European Union nor Brussels is able to create innovation. But what we can do is to create the right environment for that innovation to happen. Once fully in place and working, the digital single market could contribute 415 billion euros per year to our economy and generate hundreds of thousands of new jobs. It will provide opportunities for trade, investment, innovation, not only for Europe, but globally, also for the United States. Our strategy for achieving this will be based on 3 policy pillars. Firstly, we will improve access to online goods and services across Europe for people and businesses. We will do this by removing barriers such as the high cost of cross-border parcel delivery and tackling new means of discrimination in the online world, such as unjustified geo-blocking. Then we will create the right conditions for digital networks and services. That means high-quality telecoms infrastructure that works smoothly across Europe, backed up by the right regulatory environment to promote competition, investment, and innovation. It will include addressing areas such as the role of new intermediaries like online marketplaces and search services. And we will prepare for the future to maximize the growth potential of the digital economy with a firm focus on all aspects of data and areas of new growth, such as cloud computing and the Internet of Things. A digital single market means more opportunities for Europe, certainly, but not exclusively. It means a seamless area where people and business can trade, innovate, and interact legally, safely, and securely. It means businesses being able to make full use of new technologies. and small businesses in particular to cross the European Union with just one click. Before taking any next steps, we would like to collect all views, and that means yours as well. The European Union has a transparent and solid way of preparing legislation through consultation and impact assessments. In that respect, I believe we set a good example. Ladies and gentlemen, Europe's future digital single market will provide equal conditions where all companies offering their goods or services in the European Union are subject to the same rules, data and consumer protection, for example. This will guarantee legal certainty and is ultimately good for investments and business, whichever country they come from. We want to encourage companies, whether Europeans or not, to develop, invest and make the most out of our massive marketplace. Uniform rules, not today's patchwork of 28 different systems, are the gateway to a golden business opportunity. I wish that such as an open and welcoming attitude was common practice in other digital markets. This is unfortunately not the case. We have situations where EU companies face local content requirements for using ICT equipment. Some countries make them disclose commercially confidential information. Others put restrictions on foreign ownership and allow them no access or only limited to public procurement. I said just now that the idea of the digital single market was to tear down regulatory walls. Let me stress that again. Tearing down walls, not putting up new ones. Neither is digital single market about making laws to disadvantage Europe's competitors. The aim is not to reduce competition in the European Union, but to make sure that Europe can compete globally, for our companies to scale up faster and provide services across all EU countries. Our doors are open, not closed. There is no anti-American agenda and no fortress Europe, as I continue to read in some media. Accusations of EU protectionism are not only wrong, they are old as well. We heard them some 25 years ago. Then too, we were advancing with a single market. We were not only doing it for the good of Europe, but also for others outside Europe to benefit. The same as we are doing today with the digital single market. Here, I would like to quote former President of the European Commission, Jacques Delors, who said, "Unlike the attempts at regional autarky in the 1930s, the European community has shown for a long time that it is a factor for growth in international trade and its increasing liberalization." With the digital single markets, we have been accused of unfairly targeting US tech companies. This is not true. Between 2010 and 2014, there were 81 companies involved in EU antitrust cases. Only 21 of them were based in the United States. There were 231 companies involved in cartel decisions. Just 17 of them were based here. Remedies in merger cases affected 35 US-based companies. The total number of cases was 145. I think these figures speak for themselves. In all competition cases, we are indifferent to the nationality of the companies involved. There is no bias. For us, there is only one bottom line, that any company operating within EU territory complies with our treaty rules. Yes, there are some differences between Europe and the United States in perception, occasional differences of approach to regulation, for example. There are occasional disagreements and tensions. Frankly, that is not unusual. I still believe, however, that there is far more that we have in common than what may divide us. That is as true for technology as for any other area. We cannot allow any differences to drive a wedge between us, nor to forget our tradition of working positively together to tackle common challenges. The best answers come when we work together, deepening the digital connection between Europe and the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, I started by talking about the importance of digital trade, which has driven tremendous growth in the United States economy. Creating a digital single market in Europe, a digital savvy market that is also friendly to US investment, will also create growth and opportunities for US companies, not just European ones. But we need the support of our partners, the United States in particular, if the global digital economy is to remain open. The TTIP negotiations provide a unique, a historic opportunity to remove trade barriers between us and show global leadership in free trade. This is how we allow innovation to thrive in the global digital economy. Since digital technologies know no borders, international collaboration is needed on many wider issues, such as cybersecurity and common technical standards. Or internet governance, a vital area where Europe and the United States should stand together to create a leadership model for the world. I believe there is strong political will on both sides of the Atlantic to safeguard the open internet, while making it possible to develop innovative services, provided that they do not harm its availability and quality. Net neutrality is a good example of where we can and should work together. This is a key element of the digital single market, and the European Commission is committed to turning this principle into EU law. We are building for the long term, therefore we need legislation to do that. In fact, I do not think that the US and European approaches on open internet are very different. They go in the same direction and are based on similar principles that people should not be unfairly blocked or slowed down when using the internet. There is no paid prioritization. Content and Application providers can make their content available without discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, we are each other's first and foremost partners. We complement each other, and it makes a lot of sense for us to work closely. When it comes to digital matters, both sides have issues to deal with, separately as well as together. Let us build on our long-standing history of trust, cooperation, and mutual understanding to further the global digital market, to defend a free, open internet. Let us take this great opportunity to work together for a bright digital future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks again. Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for being here and for your remarks this morning. Since this is your first visit to the United States in your current capacity, let me start off with a familiar question. It's familiar to you, but maybe not to American audiences. There's certainly a lot of interest in the experience of Estonia, or Estonia, as people sometimes call it, because of its reliance on digital technology. So to sort of roll that question that you've answered a few times forward, how would you say that experience has informed your work on the digital single market plan?
Yeah, thank you very much for this very kind question, but you know it already. I don't think Estonia is perfect enough to teach other countries using its own examples. So some things they just happened in Estonia. No legacy was really important for those developments in Estonia when banks in Estonia, after we regained independence, started to act as commercial banks once again. They didn't have any valuable memories about traditional banking. They just took the best technology, and when they started with internet banking, those bank transactions were free of charge, and this is the reason why our elderly people, they are so familiar with computers, because if you don't have to pay, you have to take it. And now even 99.8% from all the bank transactions they are made electronically in Estonia via the internet banking system. Or there were some really good and smart decisions made in the very early stage in Estonia. For example, implementation of smart ID cards. Finns did it in Finland. They did it even a year earlier than we did it in Estonia, but it was voluntary based in Finland, and it was mandatory in Estonia. You can have your travel passport or not, but you have to have your smart ID cards. But it took 6 years to get the first 1 million digital signatures in Estonia. Then we implemented on the level of law so-called once only principle. State has right to ask for information only once, second time is prohibited. State has to use this information once again, of course according to my permission, and it gave real boost on usage of digital signatures. Now Estonians, they are signing digitally more than 1 million times during the week. So population of Estonia is 1.3 million inhabitants only. So if I can take something then from Estonia's experience, then I would like to take this approach, we have to be focused on key actions, on triggers, like this once only principle was for Estonia. So, but I don't think it's copy. It's possible to copy an example of one small member state all over the European Union. It's practically impossible.
Well, let's talk about
Cross-country skiing.
Well, we can talk about that later. I mean, you said it's an obscure sport, so at least in the United States. So the U.S. and EU and the transatlantic relationship, you have at least one fan in the United States, because Mark Zuckerberg said he thinks the digital single market plan is a good thing, at least in terms of...
Yeah, he's right.
I'm surprised you would say so. In terms of getting to a single regulatory regime. The Digital Single Market Plan talks about a European free flow of information initiative and breaking down restrictions on the free flow of data. And you talked about some of the trade barriers that exist globally. And in terms of local content restrictions, data localization, and others. How will the Digital Single Market Plan improve or facilitate the free flow of data back and forth between the United States and Europe? And thank you, by the way, for acknowledging the work of my Brookings colleague, Josh Meltzer, on the importance of those data flows to both of our economies.
Yeah. This joke about cross-country skiing, I just understood that my colleague is also keen in cross-country skiing. He's also collecting different cross-country skiing marathons, and then we are somehow competitors in this field. We are both double masters of World Open Series of cross-country skiing marathons.
So this is proof, as you said, that we have a lot more in common between the United States and Europe than we have differences. It sounds like a mirror image of speeches.
But about free flow of data, and this is one of those aims we set according to digital single market strategy. We all know that not only in the European Union, but around the world, there are many governments, many parliaments who are just thinking about, let's say, honestly, about data protectionism. How to keep data collected on the territory of the country in the territory of the country. But it's crystal clear for me that free flow of data is really needed for our economy and for democracy also. Let's take connected cars or connected trucks, for example. I would like to bring this example from Europe. Scania connected more than 110,000 trucks around the world already. They are getting information from those trucks after every 5 minutes. So they can provide, on basis of this information they are getting from trucks, some advice about maintenance, about how to improve driving habits, but because they know where those trucks are and where they are planning to go, they are also able to organize truck trains. Distance between trucks is very short, and in this way they are able to save 5 to 6% of fuel. But this is a question about efficiency. not just about fuel, but we are talking about roads, etc., about road safety, etc. But what will happen, for example, with those truck trains when they will cross borders and free flow of data will be prohibited? So we don't have to talk just about connected cars, but Internet of Things, medicine, 5G, data, free data flows. It's a must. But at the same time, of course, we have to protect everybody's privacy. And once again, trust is the must. If we will be not able to create an environment our people they can trust, they will never use those internet-based e-services. So if there will be free flow of data inside of the European Union, then I'm sure also businesses from the third countries, they will benefit from that. But once again, generally speaking, I would like to say we are not creating this digital single market only for Europeans. We don't have separate rules for European companies and other rules for foreign companies. Everybody has to respect EU regulations. Digital single market will be really beneficial for European citizens, for European companies, but as well for American companies too. Thank you.
So Miriam Shapiro mentioned that footnote that talks about a new trade and investment strategy, which will assess key issues in the digital agenda. What can we expect that may say about the flow of information across the Atlantic?
I said already that TTIP is extremely important for both for the United States and for the European Union. So we can show, finding consensus in this very issue, that we can trust each other. We are interested to have a really deep cooperation, and I think not only Europe and the United States of America will benefit from that, but it will be beneficial for the whole world. Cooperation between the United States of America and the European Union is quite deep already, and maybe even too often we are complaining about some kind of issues, talking about Fortress Europe and protectionism, but there is no basis for that kind of complaints.
Well, I think the concerns about this being aimed at U.S. companies come probably most of all on the portion of the plan that talks about undertaking an inquiry about online platforms, and says that some online platforms can have an impact on the competitive marketplace, on the pricing of services. And are there European platforms that meet that description?
Nowadays, it's quite difficult to say who owns those innovative platforms. Are those platforms European platforms or American platforms? They are multinational companies, mainly. Once again, I would like to talk about Estonia, but I'm not Prime Minister of Estonia anymore. But whose company is Skype? Now it's owned by Microsoft. But development department of SPIPE is still located in my home country, in Estonia, in Tallinn. Or for Europe, of course, we have to think why Spotify, which was created in Sweden, had to move out from the European Union to the United States to scale up. Why it's so difficult to scale up inside of the European Union. So I believe in a bright future of those sharing platforms. Quite often, when people they are talking about platform, they are thinking about a concrete search engine. But there is only one commissioner in the European Commission who has right to talk about concrete companies. All the other commissioners, according to my understanding, they have to talk about policies. So we have the same problems, the same concerns about platforms in the United States and also in the European Union. Very soon you will have in the United States a roundtable discussing about sharing platforms, sharing economy, because people, they like those platforms. Those are really innovative solutions, but some people, they are complaining. It's practically impossible to find those, generalized problems describing all the platforms. It is practically impossible to find those generalized problems. Somewhere, taxi drivers, they are not happy with new solutions. Even governor of Bank of England stated in Davos just recently that there is an Uber-type situation in banking sector. Banking is losing those most profitable sectors by sector to sharing platforms, to crowdfunding, currency exchange platforms, crediting platforms, etc. So we had to study, is there real basis for those concerns? Do we have to act or not? And I cannot see any differences in approaches you have in the United States and then we have in the European Union. So almost the same concerns, the same expectations, the same hopes, and we are dealing with the same issues, and I really believe that in the future our cooperation dealing with those issues will be even deeper than it is today.
So did you arrive at an answer to that question, why Spotify had to move to the United States to scale up?
I'm of course simplifying the situation, but my answer is quite clear. Because of fragmentation of this EU market, if companies they have to deal with 28 different regulations, then it's pretty complicated for them to understand how those different regulations they are protecting consumers in some member states, and then what kind of obligations those service providers they are getting from those different regulations. It's much easier to move out from the European Union to the United States to scale up, and then now, yeah, Spotify is back in Europe, picking up country by country. So welcome back. But in the United States, you have single markets. So when we are talking about telecoms, we are talking about digital issues, then yes, in the United States, single market is reality. Single market in physical meaning is reality also in the European Union, but sorry to say, in meaning of digital economy, yeah, this digital single market does not exist yet in the European Union.
Let's talk about safe harbor. That's been a critical enabler of those transatlantic data flows. As the Commission and the Federal Trade Commission and Commerce Department have revisited the terms of that, the biggest sticking point has been the provisions dealing with not data in the private sector, but in the public sector and intelligence collection. You said at your hearing before the Parliament as a designee that President Obama had made a remarkable speech in January of 1914 when he said that the United States is going to extend equivalent protections to non-U.S. persons to those it extends to its own citizens. You also said we'll see how America is able to make that principle a reality. Since then, the intelligence agencies, other U.S. law enforcement agencies have provided a great deal of transparency on the restrictions that implement the president's directive. And I guess I would venture to say to go beyond those that any European country provides. Are we at a point where we can put that issue to the side and move forward with safe harbor? With renewing
I'm
and
looking forward,
reaffirming
of
safe
course,
harbor?
optimistically. Optimism is our moral duty, as it was said by Karl Popper, but it is not because of Karl Popper, but I really believe we will be able to find consensus in this very issue really very soon. This statement made by President Barack Obama, according with all the data have to be treated equally. It doesn't matter data for Americans or non-Americans, was very weighted in Europe maybe already 10 years ago. But now, this strong statement was made, and we can see some real developments in those safe harbor negotiations also. We found solutions in all those commercial issues already. Now there is only one unsolved issue connected, as you mentioned, with the national security exception. And we are pretty close in finding consensus also in this issue. This is an area where we have to regain mutual trust. Because of Snowden, because of NSA, a lot of people in the European Union got an understanding that this national security exception is not used only on exceptional cases, but more broadly for mass surveillance, and people, they got the feeling that safe harbor is not safe. And we have to make safe harbor safe, and according to my information, we are pretty close to find this solution. Then we can say that safe harbor is safe, and it will be really beneficial for our people from both sides of Atlantic.
So you mentioned in your remarks the development of technical standards in doing that internationally. The Digital Single Market Plan talks about the need to define technical standards. It says that right now that's something that's largely taking place outside of Europe. Certainly trying to harmonize technical standards is a critical part of the TTIP negotiations. Is that process of looking at technical standards a place where we can have collaboration where we can involve U.S. stakeholders and the U.S. government?
Of course, this is an open process, but talking about the European Union, we can say that we have really good internet-based e-solutions in all the 28 different member states. But talking about e-governance solutions, practically, we cannot use those excellent solutions that they have in some member states in other member states. For example, e-prescription, which is highly developed in Sweden, in the country I know best, of course. In Greece, for example, 100% of family doctors, they are issuing e-prescriptions. But when Swedish people, they will travel to Estonia, they cannot use those e-prescriptions in Estonia, or when Estonians, they are traveling somewhere in Sweden, they have to use paper prescriptions. So it's because of lack of interoperability, but basis for interoperability is standardization. But talking about global standards, yes, this is an open process, and all the stakeholders, they can take part in this process, and they have to take part. So everybody is welcome. This is, once again, not about protectionism, as it common to think in some editorials in this country.
So I know you're eager to take questions from the audience, so let's turn to that.
This is always the most important, most interesting part of those panel discussions and speeches.
I'm sure that's true. So we have people on the sides with microphones, and if I could ask if you could, when you receive the mic and ask your question, if you could stand up and if you could identify yourself. So here in the front on this side.
Hi, my name is Desiree van Welsum. I'm with the World Bank. You mentioned that companies shouldn't be forced to disclose sensitive information. How do you balance that against the news that we're hearing that countries are thinking of forcing Google to disclose their algorithm?
Yeah, I have to repeat what I said already. There is only one commissioner who has right to talk about concrete companies, and this is not me. But business secrets, they were always existing, and they will exist also in future. So more transparency, even talking about search engines. In some cases, yes, it's really needed. Even me, I would like also to know where are those paid search results, where they are promoting their own services, and from where I can find those real market leaders. So maybe it's not too much to ask for. But I'm not ready to give some comments about concrete algorithms. Thank you.
Okay. I think on this side, also in the front. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Alessandro Leipold, the chief economist at the Lisbon Council, which, just to confuse people, is actually a think tank in Brussels. But whatever, and I live in DC, but whatever. And by the way, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. I know you'll be delivering the Guglielmo Marconi lecture at the Lisbon Council next Monday, and thank you for that. My question actually comes from my profession as an economist. And I sometimes have an impression that us economists and people who really sort of think and work and deal with the digital economy don't really speak to each other very much or enough. And I get that also within the Commission. I have the impression that DG ECFIN and DG Markt at times are like ships crossing in the night. For example, and I'll just give you a specific example, is, in the country-specific recommendations that are put out to each country by the ECOFIN and then the European Council, it's very difficult to find any reference to the digital economy, and yet it is an important economic issue. So my question really is, are you satisfied of the degree of collaboration, and is there a holistic approach between, say, DG Markt and DG ECFIN or the Commission as a whole, looking really at the benefits of the digital economy from an economic point of view? I just think that it seems to me that there's a need to talk to each other more.
Thank you very much for your question. I would like to say that the creation of this digital single market strategy, this process was an evidence about efficiency of this new structure of the European Commission proposed by Jean-Claude Juncker. You know, now this new structure is based on policy clusters. And in this digital single market project team, there were involved even 14 commissioners, plus President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. So, and I don't want to say that other commissioners, they didn't care about digital single market strategy. No, they participated also in this work, but not so deeply. Then we got input from 28 member states to put together this digital single market strategy. We were working closely with the European Parliament. We got input from all the political groups from the Parliament. We got also input from different committees from the European Parliament. We collected ideas from the streets. We used crowdsourcing, Twitter chats, etc. And I would like to say that this process was quite inclusive, not just inside of the European Commission, but more broadly. And that's why I believe we will be more successful in reaching all our aims set by this DSM strategy than we were in some other areas. So there is cooperation, but President Jean-Claude Juncker, during those debates on election campaign, he was talking also about silo mentality. And somehow, yeah, it was reality in the European Commission. But now different DGs, directorates, they are working together, commissioners, they are working together. And yeah, I would like to say it works.
Good. In the back on this side.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan O'Connor. I'm with the Commuter and Communications Industry Association. We have offices in DC and Brussels, and we represent international tech and internet companies. I think that the DSM is a very laudable proposal. Streamlining commerce and digital market across the 28 member states would be great from our members' point of view. We have some concerns. One particular issue is the duty of care and discussions around the duty of care standard. In the US and Europe, and in Europe it's the EU e-commerce directive, the liability shields for internet companies and telecom companies for the misdeeds of their users, so-called intermediary liability, is very important to growth of the digital economy in both the US and the EU. So there has been a lot of talk about rolling those back as part of the digital single market perspective. And from a business standpoint, we find that somewhat troubling because it's very difficult for companies to, at that scale, to monitor everything their users are saying and doing. And from a free expression point of view, obviously there's concerns about companies being forced to make more decisions about what their users can and say. So I was curious if you could discuss some of the duty of care proposals and discussions within the DSM proposal.
Thank you. As we all know, there are many stakeholders who are asking for a level playing field. For example, telecoms, they are complaining that this sector is over-regulated. They have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of obligations, and at the same time, the top services, they don't have those, according to telecoms, of course. They don't have those restrictions and obligations. Then broadcasting and video on demand. Once again, it seems to broadcasters that their sector is over-regulated, lot of restrictions, lot of obligations, and those other players, they don't have that kind of restrictions. We had to analyze this situation. And on basis of results of those analyses, we can say how we will react, or is there real need to react. And as I say it in my opening remarks also, I don't want to say that we will start to regulate. Maybe in some cases, as we know, no regulation is the better regulation. So let's start with those analyses. Duty of care and notice and take down, those are quite important principles. You know, in some cases, also OTTs, they are following those principles. In some other cases, they say, no, we are not able to take down some illegal content. We have to make difference between illegal content and illegally used legal content. So those are different things, and how to make difference, it's very complicated. In some cases, it's not an easy task, but I can say about all the digital single market strategy, it will be an uphill struggle, not easy victories. When some people, they are complaining and asking for a level playing field, we have to deal with those issues. Thank you.
Over here.
I'm Alfredo Timmermans, representative of Telefonica, one of those telecom companies. As you perfectly well know, we are not only concerned about the level playing field, but also about the physical infrastructure, the networks, and the lack of common regulation or market. Do you think is it possible to have a good digital single market without having some sort of market for the networks?
I don't think. We all know, according to McKinsey, 10% more broadband, it's equal to 1.3% GDP. There is a quite strong correlation between access to the internet, between broadband and GDP. In the European Union, we have to pay much more attention on spectrum issues. We have to coordinate our activities in this field in a much deeper way, but we didn't succeed when we started to discuss about telecom single market package. So some member states in the European Union got an understanding that now they would like to take our money on the level of the European Union. Spectrum is a natural resource, and it's up to member states in the European Union to deal with natural resources. It's not up to the European Union to deal with those resources. But we never had those plans to take this money governments that they are getting from selling frequencies. So we wanted and we would like to ask for deeper cooperation. once again, back to those connected trucks, etc. This is really needed. So access to networks. This is also an issue here in the United States. Some of European companies, they are complaining. Some of them already 10 years continue to complain about the fact that this is not a fair competition according to those telecom companies when they have to pay for the last mile unreasonably high prices. So it's not up to me to say, is it really so, and do you have to change regulations, or there is no basis for that's kind of accusations. But if somebody is concerned, if somebody is worried, then policymakers and regulators, they have to pay attention on those issues. So, yeah, I would like to support competition. I believe in competition. If there will be really fair competition, then we will get much more investments. Telecom companies sometimes, they say that competition is too high, and then this is the reason why they are not able to invest. But in real life, we can see that if there is a real competition, then it's good place for innovations, and then good place for investments, good time for investments also. Yeah. In the European Union, fair competition, it means also that all the American companies, they will be very welcomed.
Over here on the far right. Second. On my far right.
Thank you very much. Carl Szabo, NetChoice. Mr. Vice President, one of the things that you talked about is free flow of data, but the DRM also discusses free flow of goods. And here in the US, we're debating kind of a destination-based sourcing of taxes for e-commerce. It seems like the DRM is moving in the opposite direction. It's something you haven't yet discussed. I was hoping you could kind of explain why you're suggesting this move away from destination to origin-based sourcing under the VAT.
Free movement of goods and services is one of those basic values in the European Union. But talking about e-commerce, we can see many real obstacles. For example, high prices of parcel delivery in the European Union. I'm talking about international parcel delivery prices. In comparison with domestic prices, in one EU member state, this difference is even 22 times. International prices, they are 22 times more expensive than domestic prices. In the country I know best, this difference, I'm talking about 2 kilograms parcels, is 9.5 times. In Denmark and Sweden, living standard is almost the same, but let's take Malmö and Copenhagen. Delivery from one town to another is 42 euros, but from another to the first city, it's 27 euros. So everybody can understand that the biggest part from those parcel delivery prices has to be created by last mile, which is the most expensive one. But in real life, in the European Union, it's not so. We are asking for more transparency also in this field. I don't want to start to regulate parcel delivery prices. Then about taxation. In the year 2004, small, medium-sized companies in the European Union started to complain because They said for big companies, for global players, it's quite easy to move their headquarters to the countries where level of value-added tax rate is quite low, for example. And in this way, those small and medium-sized companies, they were out of the competition. So then in the year 2008, we changed regulations, and according to 2015 VAT regulations, we changed this country of origin principle into country of destination principle in meaning of value-added tax. And now, once again, companies, especially in the United Kingdom, they are unhappy because in the United Kingdom, there is quite high level of threshold for VAT. They don't have to declare VAT when this turnover is under 81,000 British pounds per year, but they have to declare their digital services from the very first British pound already. So we would like to propose once again to set this threshold on a quite high level. I would like to propose 100,000 euros per year, and then there will be less bureaucracy for especially startups, for small companies in the European Union. So we are dealing with those issues. We started once again to talk about common consolidated corporate tax basis, which is an optional approach, 29th regime. And once again, I think especially for companies from the third countries, it will be beneficial and it will be easy to understand how this 29th regime works, and once again, it will deepen competition in the European Union, and I believe in competition. I believe our people, they will get affordable prices just because of competition. Thank you.
We have another question over to my left. Yes, with the yellow tie.
Chris Bledowski, Manufacturers Alliance for Productivity and Innovation. A few years ago, the German government has coined the term Industry 4.0 to indicate the fourth industrial revolution, basically spanning real-time data access through the internet from the design process all the way to the post-production customer service and so on. In the United States, that's known, by the way, as industrial internet, roughly the same thing. Two questions. This is very much a government-driven policy. Do you believe that you can scale it up from the German concept to a European Union concept? That's the first question. And regardless whether you answer in the affirmative or in the negative, are there any particular elements in Industry 4.0 that you think might be borrowed and transplanted into your digital single market? Thank you.
Yes, answer is clear, yes. And this German example is worth to follow for everybody in the European Union. It's not correct today to talk about digital economy and non-digital economy anymore, because all the economy is digital already. Let's take this traditional German industry, car producing industry. 40% of value added created in car producing industry is created by digital. So pharmaceutical industry, it's not so much chemistry anymore. It's much more about data. So this is our future, and not the future of Germany only. Thank you.
We'll take one more question. Yes, in the red shirt down here on the aisle. Microphone.
I'd like to get you to talk a little bit about entrepreneurs. I ran an accelerator program last year, and 50% of the entrepreneurs that were part of the program were European founders or from Europe. And I thought that was really curious. We did not expect so many wanting to come to the US. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know in San Francisco, France just opened up a program. There are programs from all over Europe in San Francisco to help European startups raise funding there. And I think part of the challenge with Spotify was a lot of funding that happens in the US, they have to create a US company. So that's part of the challenge. So I was wondering how you're going to help the entrepreneurs in Europe.
Thank you very much for this question. I stated it very clearly. Our answer is digital single market. So single market, not 28 relatively small markets. If we will be able to create a huge market with more than 100 million healthy customers to our entrepreneurs, they prefer to stay in Europe. But today, this market is pretty fragmented. But I would like to say that this trend is not only, on one direction from Europe to the United States. Also, U.S. companies, they are creating their services, development departments in different EU member states. And when they are worldwide companies, it's absolutely needed for those companies. For example, just this Tuesday, we had a meeting with the CEO of Symantec, Mike Brown, and they have thousands of workers in the European Union. In the country I know best, they have approximately 200 jobs. So global companies, they are really interested to invest in European economy also. But talking especially about startups, yes, this environment is much more fruitful in the United States, especially in Silicon Valley, in New York City, in Boston for some Europeans than in the European Union. And once again, our answer to those people is digital single market. So those smart people, they will play in the nearest future much more important role than they are playing today. Let's take app industry, for example. In app industry, there are approximately 1.8 million jobs now in the European Union. But according to prognosis, in the European Union, in the year 2018, there will be 4.8 million jobs in app industry. 3 million more jobs in app industry. It seems that it's not so important. It's not about oil or iron, but it's rapidly developing. And I believe in big data, in text and data mining. I hope one lovely day somebody will call me and say, Mr. Ansip, go immediately to the hospital because most likely you will get stroke after 6 hours. I will be not extremely happy about this phone call, but I will be really grateful. And I know my health foundation will be extremely happy because to deal with consequences, it's much more expensive than to avoid stroke. But it's possible to find all kind of similar patterns, all kind of really beneficial correlations for our people from data today already and tomorrow even more. Thank you.
Well, on that note, I want to exercise the privilege of asking the last question. And it really picks up on what you just said about some of the potential of data. It strikes me that a lot of the debate about big data, about privacy, about some of the potential here, sort of polarizes between sort of fear and embrace. And I think and that's true in the United States. It's true in Europe. It's true elsewhere in the world. And I think we see the fear reflected in some of things like the potential impact of the regulation when it comes to data analytics in profiling, and other concerns about the use of big data. The writer Ben Hammersley recently spoke about sort of the continuum from cool to creepy, and you, I think, have come down on the cool side of that continuum. And certainly the Digital Single Market Plan, in declaring that big data, cloud services, the Internet of Things are central to Europe's competitiveness, has, I think, come down strongly on the side of embrace. What do you say to the voices of fear that, or the sense that being able to tell that you may be about to have a stroke, that's creepy, that's something we should prevent?
Once again, we have to protect everybody's privacy. And yes, it's possible. Even if we know that volume of data is increasing really rapidly. This data industry is increasing 40% per year. We know that 90% from all the data we collected since today, we collected during the last 2 years. So there are a lot of sensors surrounding us in the car, 200 different sensors. They are producing data, even cutting the lawn. You are producing data. It depends, of course, what kind of equipment you are using. But it's not only Google and Eric Schmidt, Eric Schmidt stated that Google knows where we are, where we were, and then they know even better where we are planning to go. So, but car companies, they know also when you started, where you stopped, which places did you visit, who was sitting, not names and ID codes, but children or adults in back seat, what they were doing there in back seat, and so on. It's possible to collect data quite easily today, but once again, if people, they will not trust this environment, they will not use those internet-based e-services. We have to protect everybody's privacy. We have to provide those beneficial services based on data to our people, and it's possible to put those things together. Personal health records, for example. In some countries in the European Union, personal health records, they are owned by patients. And for those patients, it's so easy to ask for a second opinion, even from lawyers. But in the majority of EU member states, those personal health records, they are owned by hospitals. And in some cases, people, they don't have even access to their personal health records. So about what kind of a free movement of patients we can talk about in the European Union when people, they don't have access to their personal data. But I think we have to pay much more, not only about personal health record, but about data ownership. Who owns data? So people, yes, they do have access to data collected about them. But do they have to get also rights to delegate access to data collected about them to somebody else? So we have to find answers on those very complicated questions, and solution, of course, has to protect both free flow of data and especially everybody's privacy. Thank you.
Well, Vice President Ansip, again, I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for...
Okay.
Thank you for engaging with all of us.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. I look forward to have really good cooperation between the European Union and the United States of America in the near future. Thank you.